Throughout The Sopranos, the writers and directors began to use familiar settings and character interactions throughout each episode. As this is familiar characters sharing the screen, being in a familiar location or setting, or often characters taking part in actions or conflicts repeatedly. Whether this is Tony and Silvio being in the back office of the Bing, Christopher and Paulie bickering at each other, or Carmela asking Tony for money. But in the 10th episode of Season 6, titled Mo and Joe, we shockingly don't get any of these storylines at all. We don't get familiar characters sharing the screen or even the same narratives being developed. This episode of Mo and Joe showcases characters interacting with other characters that we would never see them with, or be seen in settings or places that are new to the audience. As this episode of The Sopranos, Mo and Joe, showcases all of this and displays why this is the most unique, rarest, and one of the most funniest Sopranos episodes of all time. The episode begins with Sal Vitro, the landscaper, taking a break from working on Tony's house. While we have seen him work on John Sacramone's house before in previous episodes, we have never seen him work on Tony's house. Also, while we've seen Sal discuss business with Paulie in the past, we've never seen him have a full conversation with Tony, as Sal showcases his tiredness towards Tony about still having to work on John's house, despite John being in jail. This scene, and the entire episode for that matter, is unique and hilarious because we rarely get to see Tony and Sal share the screen. Another rare scene that we see next is Janice and Tony at Satriale's. While we do certainly see Tony and Janice in an immense amount of scenes throughout the series, we never see Janice visit Tony while he's at work or at Satriale's. This scene with Janice, Tony, and Janice's daughter Sophia almost displays her in a Livia-like manner, as she yells at the men over the counter over her free roast being given to Carmela instead of her. As we've seen in prior episodes that Livia too would get free meat from Satriale's. The next scene we see is between Vito and his boyfriend Jim, and in this season we do see plenty of scenes between the two lovers. However, we never see Vito and Jim argue and show their true colors like they do here. We never see Vito in a library for that matter, and we certainly never see Vito drink excessively like we do in this episode. Along with this, we watch Vito actually work a real job for once in his life. And in this comedic scene, we watch him struggle working his first 9 to 5, even after a few short hours. We then see Carmela and her friends surprise Ginny at her home. This is rare because it showcases Carmela, Rosalie, Gab, and even a surprise showing of Janice make an appearance. While we've seen this before with Carmela and her friends having a movie night at Tony's house, but this scene is briefly hilarious when Carmela talks to Sal. Again, we see Sal in a scene with characters he's never in the same scene with, and really shines a light on the character of Sal. The uniqueness of this episode continues when we see Vito and Jim's relationship hit new strides, with them engaging in sexual activities as we watch, as this is probably the first time the two lovers have had sex. We also see John's messenger boy, his brother-in-law Anthony, visit Tony in the back room at the Bing. Similarly to the scene with Janice visiting Tony at Satriale's, we sort of see the same thing here, with a character who doesn't fit in the particular setting completely stick out. As just like Janice, Anthony too sticks out like a sore thumb at the Bing. He's fragile, weak, small, innocent, nerdy, and can easily be joked with and can be intimidated by Tony. In this episode, we also get to learn more about the town that Vito hides out in. We see Vito jump into the action and help the situation going on when there's a fire, and we can really see that Vito is starting to take a liking to being where he is. Sticking with characters being in an unfamiliar place, we see Bobby make a visit to a bookie to collect a payment. What's different here is that the area where Bobby is in is likely a dangerous neighborhood, as Bobby is in the ghetto, as we watch him get a gunshot wound to the eye and learn that the cops don't even come down to this part of Newark. Seeing Tony Soprano, a guy who makes a living off being a crook and screwing people over, it's ironic and awkward to see Tony get the same treatment that he does to people from the crooked southern businessman that he has dinner with. In many ways, it's almost like Tony here is getting a taste of his own medicine that he had with the HUD real estate scam earlier in the series. even despite Tony doing this as a favor for his friend John Sacramone, who is currently locked away in jail. We get a shocking look and glimpse into the Buccellari home when Janice embarrasses Bobby and Bobby Jr. First, when she takes a beer away from her husband when he tells her he's had his eye medication. Then, when she wants Bobby Jr. to go get his report card and read it out loud to everyone. It's here where we see that Janice is just like Livia, as she is especially strict on her children even though they're not hers. This completely shocks Tony and the audience as we learn that maybe the Soprano household isn't the worst household after all. We then get an absolutely hilarious scene between Tony and a weeping Meadow. This scene is so funny because we almost never see Tony comfort Meadow in the way we do here. Later on in the episode, we basically see the same scene that we saw in the beginning of the episode, with the same old mopey Sal confronting Tony about the situation regarding cutting John's grass despite him being in jail. But this time, Tony is accompanied by Silvio, which adds an even more comedic level to the scene. We watch as Tony and Silvio are both fed up with Sal's complaining and decide to let him off the hook. Towards the end of the episode, we see Christopher has a place in New York City as we watch his car, which belongs to John, get towed. And then in the Soprano home basement, we watch as Janice completely loses control and sobs hysterically over Tony, as he gifted her the Sacramone home. This scene is hilarious and shows how much of a nutcase Janice truly is, and reminds us of a scene earlier on in the episode between Tony and Meadow, where Meadow too completely lost control and started crying. This episode showcases characters interacting with characters that they never would have done before if it weren't for this episode. We see Tony interact with Sal, Christopher side in New York City, and Janice visits Satriali's. As well, this episode truly is one of the more funnier episodes throughout the series, as in my opinion, it's right up there with Pine Barrens and the Christopher episode. Did you notice any of these rare occurrences? Let me know down in the comment section below. And I would love to hear your favorite line from this episode as well down in the comment section. For more Sopranos content, keep it locked here, right here on this channel.